Remember that opening scene in Half-Life 2, the scene in which you're running away from the Combine? Unarmed, defenseless, quite possibly naked, with the Combine haplessly shooting at you for about causing no damage because they equip with toy BB guns? Well, take that scene, add a few puzzle elements, give Freeman +7 agility, nice boobs, and a voice, take away his goatee, glasses, penis, and half of his whiteness, turn off the craziness and frenzy just a little bit, add some actual danger, and stretch it to 6 hours and you've got Mirror's Edge. You play as Faith. She's some Eurasian chick, a mix of grunge and hip-hop and goth, a modern girl who's both compassionate and fierce. She's like Pink, except in black and yellow. She lives in this evil, oppressive, totalitarian city-state, and she seeks to fight it the best she can. And of course, the best way to do that is to be a delivery man, without the delivery truck. She's a runner that delivers important information or documents or packages or whatever else by running on rooftops, which I guess is the only viable way to communicate in a society where every other line of communication is closely monitored. No, you may not use carrier pigeons or use tin cans with strings attached to each end. There's some election for mayor coming up, with a new candidate promising change and posing a serious threat to the stability of the city-state. But why the hell such a city would hold a fair election is never explained. The new mayor is shot dead, and somehow Faith's sister, Kate, who just happens to be a police officer in the society, a very agent of oppression that Faith is fighting, oh the irony, is set up to take the fall. So Faith runs around looking for information that would exonerate her sister, but why a totalitarian city-state would accept evidence and hold fair trials is never really explained. Obviously the story sucks, is lacking in depth, a lot of things aren't explained or fleshed out, but plentiful in plot holes and cliches. It even has a predictable plot twist. Someone turns out to be evil! Someone you couldn't possibly have predicted, except you've seen it in 538 movies already. But really, who cares? Sometimes a game is greatly enhanced by a story, but if you're playing games with a story, then you're not doing it right. The story's serviceable, and that's good enough for me. And by that I mean the story gives you reasons to run. And here's where the game really shines. You're Faith, and though you have some great abilities like being very agile and quite fast, and could quite possibly compete in the UFC with all the counter moves you have at your disposal, and you may very well be the daughter of Jackie Chan and Linda Hamilton, you're pretty much human nevertheless. Yeah, you have the ability to heal from bullet wounds within seconds, and you're extremely lucky and blessed that these police officers somehow seem less adept at aiming when you happen to climb ladders or poles, but it's often best not to see yourself as a tank. The best thing to do when faced with opposition is run away. Just like in movies, when you're on the run while trying to stay behind cover as much as possible, bad guys have a hard time hitting you. And that may seem a bit contrived, but who cares? When there are bullets sprayed all around you while you're running away as quickly as possible, avoiding obstacles in your way and jumping over gaps and hurdles, you're having fun. And running around is certainly fun in any game. Some games are built entirely on that concept. But this game does one better. Unlike in other games, you really feel like you're running when jumping and shit. While an impact in other games is often indicated with a thud and the screen flashing brightly, Mirror's Edge doesn't have to resort to such gimmicks to get across the notion that your character weighs something, though the screen does flash red when you hurt yourself. You feel like there's gravity and repulsion and all that other snazzy physics junk, not some calculations done by the developers and artificially placed in the game to mimic them. I said this about Prince of Persia as well, but it's exaggerated here because the game takes place entirely in first-person perspective. Seeing your body parts as you run and jump and pull off other acrobatic feats adds to the feel. When you bust open a door with your body, somehow, some way, the game conveys that feeling perfectly. Your body slamming into the door swinging violently open, a very brief moment of daze from the impact, you can somehow feel it. When you drop down from a sizable height and you fail to break the fall by tumbling after you land, you somehow feel the force of the fall and can't help but wince. When you jump across a gap to grab onto a pole mid-flight, you feel the impact of your hand slapping the pole and your arms hugging it. It's all very visceral and concrete. And some of it has to do with the sound effects, very spectacular in this game, especially when you grab that pole or kick open a door. Some of it has to do with the music. It kicks in at just the right time and adds a few extra measures of frenzy to the pace. Some of it has to do with the visuals, which are simply gorgeous even if you're just standing about and looking around, but even more so in the way motion and force of impact is presented. Even simple things like your head bopping slightly as you run and increasing with speed feel right. The variation in the pacing is wonderful and keeps things from feeling too repetitive. Half the times you're going to be running somewhat leisurely. You'll get to scope out the terrain and try to figure out the best way to get from one side to the other. But another quarter of the time you're going to be running about frantically. And the pressure comes in various ways, either police appearing out of nowhere and shooting at you, you running after someone trying to keep pace, or some kind of time constraint placed on you to get to a certain area. Then there are the puzzles. They are very nicely done. Mostly they're in the form of finding a way to get to a certain area. For instance, you have to get to an event that's situated too high for you to reach, so you have to, say, use the momentum from running and catapulting of a box to reach a pipe that you can climb to reach a platform, and from there jump to grab the opening of the event and pull yourself up. There's one in particular that was very memorable. The game has a help button, the Alt key, which when pressed tilts the camera angle so that you're facing your objective, as in where you're supposed to be heading. On this particular puzzle, pressing the help key had Faith looking up to an event that was situated about 100 feet above ground, with no direct route visible. My immediate reaction to that moment was to complain, because I thought it would be difficult and frustrating. But I found that climbing up to that vent was a very enjoyable and ultimately satisfying experience. It seems the more complex things get, the more fun I had. And that's true of all aspects of the game. The more complex things get, the more you're able to pull off a move, the more fun it becomes. The game starts you off with a simple tutorial and proceeds from there. You run, you jump, you climb, you drop down, you stop to fight one or two policemen or avoid a few bullets from their handguns, and in this way you get from point A to point B. And it's all fun, it's nice. But then the game slowly adds a few wrinkles here and there. Now you have to string some moves together. Now you can't make as many errors like bumping into something or mistiming a jump. Now you have to fight 5 or 6 policemen, armed to the teeth with machine guns. And strangely enough, the more complex it gets, the more fun. Sure, there are some frustrating moments as you struggle with the learning curve, but once you master the game and you're getting through some lengthy sequences without missing a beat or slowing down, you'll forget frustrating moments and thoroughly enjoy the experience. That goes for puzzles in which you have to get to events situated 100 feet above ground, or for a long sequence that you have to complete 30 seconds earlier than you'd comfortably like. The more complex, the more you master, the more fun the game. There are some very irritating moments in Mirror's Edge, and it's not just because I'm stupid and can't solve puzzles, or because I suck at platforming and have sausages for fingers. No, it's because some moments are either contrived, ridiculous, or simply nonsensical. Whether it's trains that run every 30 seconds, or elevators that break sound barriers, or Faith not being able to grab onto certain objects or climb onto them, even though she should be able to, or being restricted by design choices or developers' thinking, there are frustrating moments strewn about and they do detract from the overall quality of a game. There are times in which I pleasantly discovered multiple pathways to get from A to B. Perhaps I'm just stupid and couldn't discover more, but it's my firm belief that 99% of people are stupid and I'm just one of them. So either way, whether I'm just stupid or there are really no other pathways to discover, 99% of people won't be discovering them, and that's a damn shame. I'm not an advocate of open worlds, because I'm finding that open worlds usually mean that you get to drive around, walk about, kill people randomly, have prostitutes give you handjobs, and take your ugly girlfriend to 5-frame bowling, and not much more, and not all that exciting, to be honest. I'm all for scripted sequences and linear pathways because they provide for memorable moments, but running into restrictions because the vision of the developers is limited and their thinking doesn't match yours is really frustrating. And be warned, this is a very short game, about 6 hours long. But there are time trials you could do that could potentially add a few more hours. And you can compete in those time trials online to see how fat your fingers really are. The time trials are wonderful, by the way, and it's interesting just to try different things and see if you can find any shortcuts. All in all, despite its length, and I never really complain about how short a game is, though I do often complain about how long a game is, I think this is a must-buy. This game is wonderful in its visuals, its pacing, in how it conveys running. Quite simply, it's one of the most exciting new IPs to come along in recent years.